My dad went to World War II in the Navy when I was a baby. And when he came home, well, I really didn't know who he was. And he was a professional civil engineer, but we lived in San Benito, Texas, in the lower Rio Grande Valley, and there wasn't much call for his profession there. So we were rather poor, and he looked in the newspaper for ads, and he saw one that said civil engineer in Venezuela. So he interviewed for it and got the job. And he was gone for a few months before he sent for us. And we spent the summer before we started to school and in Venezuela. We first lived in Maracaibo, and our housekeeper became our nanny too, and she was teaching her son the alphabet and other things, and my sister and I started studying with her. We just started writing down the alphabet in Spanish and then communicating with her. She didn't know any English, and so we had to learn to speak Spanish while Mom and Dad were at work. So by the time we started to school, we were both fluent. We could read, write, and speak Spanish. Our teachers were amazed. And then when we came back, we lived in Maracaibo first. Then we moved to Cabimas. And at first, our housekeeper said she couldn't move from Maracaibo. But as time went on, she contacted my folks and said she would like to. So she did move there with us. So she was there most of the time, which was wonderful. First house we lived in there, it was very hot. And we didn't even have a fan in our bedroom. And I don't think there was even a window in Teresa in my room. But then we moved, and from then on we had air conditioning. So much better. When we came back, I was 13, and we'd been gone for 4 years. So I was going to go into the 8th grade. Well, the teenagers in this U.S. were much more advanced and kind of wild. And we had been very protected. We were still childlike. So it was a big transition, especially for me. Then we lived in this little apartment at first until Dad came back. And then he had a house built for us. It was a real nice brick home, beautiful, best we'd ever had. And it had air conditioning and everything. I loved it. And they lived in that home until I got married. And when I did, Dad was working in Far, Texas, and it was too far to drive, so the commute. So they sold that house and moved to Far. I went to San Benito High School. And at that time, I would say the ratio between Caucasians and Hispanics was probably not quite 50-50. I think there were more of us than there were of the Spanish kids. And now it's probably, there are probably very few Caucasian kids in that school. Okay, we had a speaker come to church from Abilene Christian College at that time. And he spoke about how wonderful it was in the school and everything. And I was starstruck. I had to go there. Well, my family wasn't wealthy. And my mom and dad looked at each other, and I said, that's where I want to go to college, ACC. And so they thought about it a lot. I'm sure they prayed over it. And one day my mother told me, said, Dad and I talked it over, and we're going to get you to ACC. That's where you want to go. I'm sure it was a hardship for them. I'm sorry.
It's all right. But we all sacrifice. All parents sacrifice for the kids.
Yes. They also helped send you to ACU and Melody. They sent money every semester to help you. Anyway, they were great parents. They supported me all the way.
What do you remember most about Dot?
Well, Dot was very popular with her friends, but she was a strict mama. And they didn't put a curfew on me because I was just a little homegirl. I really liked being at home. And I watched TV with my dad a lot while Mother was in the kitchen or doing the laundry. Mother was very hyper. She was just a high-strung personality. And Dad was just laid back. So, and I got more of his disposition. And Teresa was high-strung like Mother. So Teresa would be spending the night with friends all the time, and I was just at home sitting next to my dad watching TV. And we'd go to the drive-in movie. Our neighbors that had been our neighbors when we were poor, they lived across the street from us in a fine home. And then those two ladies, one of them, husband died, and they bought the Citrus drive-in theater. And that was the first drive-in movie there was, probably in the whole valley. And they told us that anytime we wanted to go to the drive-in, they're going to give us a pass, just come on through. And we went to the concession stand, and they wouldn't let us pay for anything there either. So that was a fun time. Nearly every Saturday night, Dad would say, let's go to the drive-in, as it would start getting a little dark. So that was kind of a big thing.
What was Woody like?
Well, let's see. I'm sure he had PTSD when he came home from the war, because he had quite a temper, and he was very hard on me. Not so much for Teresa, she was 5 years younger, but he mellowed out, and he was a Baptist. Mother was going to the Church of Christ, and she just was adamant that she would not go back to the Baptist church. So he came on with us, and I told my parents that I wanted to be baptized next Sunday. And when I went forward, Teresa followed me, and my dad got up and followed us. Of course, he'd already been baptized in the Baptist church, but he wanted to keep the family together. He followed us, and we were all three baptized that day. It was a very joyful day, and I just really felt so much better. I felt like all my sins were washed away, and I was starting fresh, and I did. It was a real blessing. Church was really big. That was the center of our activities. We went to church Sunday morning, Sunday evening, and Wednesday night. And they even changed the Wednesday night service to be a little earlier because Gunsmoke would be coming on. And everybody wanted to be home to watch Gunsmoke. We didn't have recorders back then, no DVRs. So we got to do it all. And I had my first real boyfriend there when I was in high school. And I think I was a junior. And this boy had come to help his uncle on his farm in a nearby town, and he went to San Benito to come to church. And we started going out together, just drive-in or movie theater, different things like that. And we had a youth group, and he came to that, and he played the guitar and sang. He sang all of Ricky Nelson's songs, and all the girls were just like swooning. He was cute. He was real cute. But he was a little older, and he had to go back home. He was from Missouri, went back home after the summer, and then because my mother told him in no uncertain terms when he said something about moving to San Benito, she said, well, you can do whatever you wish, but Dianna's going to college. She's going to Abilene Christian. And lo and behold, he ended up going to David Lipscomb in, I don't know, Tennessee. Yeah, right there close. So that's where he met his wife. And I met Warren at ACU.
Talk about where and how did you meet Warren at ACU?
Well, how I really met Warren was a friend of mine named Laurie. She invited me to the Alaska for Christ missions group. She was already signed up to go to Alaska. And so I went with her just to see what it was like. And she was so encouraging, I decided to go with them. And that's where I met Warren. And met her future husband in that group also. So anyway, that's how we met.
And when did y'all get married? And
We
where?
we got married in San Benito in my hometown Church of Christ, and in 1961 on my birthday. Not too smart, but anyway, September 15th, 1961. That's when we got married.
And then where did y'all move from there?
Well, he had gotten a job in Detroit, Michigan for a church there. And so we moved up there. He was a personal work director. He had learned about that kind of thing at ACU, and he was one of the pioneers of being a personal work director. And we taught the members of the church how to teach their friends to, be Christians and all. And it was a very good thing that we were doing.
And when and where was I born?
Mike, you were born in, actually very close to Redlands. We lived in Redlands, California, because Warren's folks lived there. And Warren thought he could find work there. And we stayed with his folks for a little while until he got a job. And then you were actually born in what's called Loma Linda Hospital. It was a Seventh-day Adventist hospital, so they didn't serve meat. And they would give me like a hamburger made out of vegetables, and it tasted like a hamburger made out of vegetables. Not so good. But I wasn't there that long anyway. So, but I remember your beautiful face, Mike, when you were born. I thought, the minute he's born, I'm going to look at his face, and if they try to switch babies, I'll know. I was very nervous they were going to switch my baby. And I thought, I know this baby. I know what he looks like. They can't switch him on me. I was only like 21 years old and almost 22 when you were born. And so really very young and just worried about losing my baby. He was mine. And I sang to you in the hospital. I started teaching you about Jesus right away. I sang Jesus Loves Me, and All the Children of the World, all of those songs that I kept singing to you in melody as you grew up. The next question was, where did we move over the next few years? Do you really want to know?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
You can go ahead.
From Redlands, we moved to Yucaipa, California, which was kind of a little country town. And we lived in a duplex. And Mike was still a baby. We only had one bedroom, so we shared it with the baby. And then from Yucaipa, we went back to Abilene. Warren wanted to take some more Bible classes. And then he found out that there was a opening for a personal work director at Webb Chapel in Carrollton. And so he came and interviewed, got the job. He went back and got Mike and me and brought us to Carrollton. And, I pretty much lived in Carrollton the rest of the time. So we were at Webb Chapel Church of Christ for quite some time. And then, let's see, You want to know where Melody was born?
Yeah, tell us about Melody a little bit.
Okay. Well, Melody was born at Baylor Hospital in Dallas. And she was another beautiful baby, but she was so tiny. She was really little. Mike, you were 8 pounds, 10 ounces. Melody was 7 pounds, 7 ounces. And she was born on December the 5th, 1966. And at that time, the doctor said, we can schedule the birth if you want and have it be more conveniently in the daytime. And I thought that was a terrible idea. I wanted it to be natural. So I said, no, I don't want to do that. But if I'd known what I knew later, I would have done it because she was overdue by almost at least a week or two. And I found out that the placenta begins to deteriorate after the due date, and I would not have made that choice if I'd known that. But she was still born perfect, no problem. And both babies came real quick. I had real easy deliveries, and I just pictured myself in the arms of Jesus, and he was holding me up, and that's how I did it. And my grandmother had sent me a letter, and she said, be brave. You're going to do great. And I remembered that, too, while I was in labor. And I wasn't in labor very long with either baby, like less than 2 hours once we got to the hospital. So
you were a stay-at-home mom back then?
I was. I got to stay at home with Mike and Melody for the first 10 years of our marriage. And then Warren and I went our separate ways, and Mike was 8 and Melody was not quite 4. So it was a very devastating and sad time for especially Mike and me. Melody missed him too, but she was so much younger, and she perked up a lot quicker, and that was a blessing because we began to laugh at Melody. She was funny. She had a very sparkly personality and got Mike and me to laugh. And I remember, Mike, one time you said to me, because I cried so much, you said, Mom, let's don't cry anymore. And I thought, yeah, that's a message. So I thought I better not, especially in front of the kids. And we did pretty well. It was a very tough 2 years being a single mom. And of course I had to get a job, and I had to find a place to, a daycare for Melody. And Mike, I had to figure out how to get you to school. Warren and I had already made arrangements for you to go to Christian school. And I believe you were already going over to Mesquite, to that Dallas Christian school. And so I just had to continue on making arrangements for you to get to do that. And it wasn't easy to get a good daycare. You would go over to the daycare after school, and you told me that the lady there was mistreating Melody. She hit her or something with her ring. And when I found that out, I had to find somebody else. And there was a lady in the mobile home park where we lived that said she could take care of y'all that summer then. And so that's what we did. And she had a raccoon, I think. And y'all were scared of the raccoon, but he was probably not dangerous. She wouldn't have had him in the house. Oh my, yes. Mike, you ran right into a tree. You were looking the other way, playing ball, and bumped your forehead and got a big goosebump. Then after that...
Didn't I break my arm?
Melody broke hers. Yes, you did. You broke your elbow. And the doctor said he was going to try to get it to where it would look normal, but he said there's a lot of breakage in there. Well, then he came out of the surgery and he said, it's going to heal just fine. And you had a cast on. Was it straight out? Oh my goodness. And then after that, you had appendectomy. And, you know, I'm trying to keep everything together. And then Melody, the lady who was taking care of her after school, her daughter threw Melody up in the air and she fell down, broke her arm. So it was like, you know, tragedy upon tragedy. But our faith in God held us together. And I was determined to keep my children. Nobody was going to take them from me. And my parents believed that too. And they helped to support us a lot, big time, until I got a real good job downtown Dallas. I read an ad in the paper about a legal secretary. And I'd been a secretary already, and I thought, well, whatever it is that they do, I'm sure I could learn it. I had 2 years of college, and I thought, come on, bring it on. So I went for the interview, and I got the job. And, well, the first attorney that I worked for was really not a very nice man, and he made a pass at me, and I just got out of his office quickly and went to my desk, and it scared me to death. And I was just sitting there and trying to keep my composure. And when I came back to work the next Monday, they told me that I was being transferred to a different attorney. So I figured I'd hurt his ego. So I was relieved. I got a different person to work for, and he was decent. So I worked for that law firm for a long time, 5 years at this. It was a patent and copyright law firm. And then I worked as a temporary downtown again. That was the only place to make any kind of money. And one of the secretaries in this office that I was working at was real sweet, and she told me that Atlantic Richfield had real good jobs, that you should apply over there because they promote from within, and you could do a lot better than what I was doing. So I did, and I got the job, and that turned out to be a great place to work. And anyway, I had already married Robert, though, when I was working at that law firm.
Well, talk about, you were dating another guy, and then Robert came along. Talk about how all that worked out.
Oh, my goodness. Yes, well, okay. As people do today, go online and all that. Well, we didn't have the internet, but there was something called Someone Special. There were different dating services. And I found about this one called Someone Special, and it sounded nice. So I did have dates with several men. And most of them were very nice. Only one guy came to the door drunk, and I didn't go with him. And I met this really nice man. I believe he was a Christian. And I think his name was Jerry. And I think he was getting pretty serious about me, but I didn't know that. And so anyway, then I met Robert at Webb Chapel Church of Christ one evening. And it took him a whole year to call me because he said he had a lot of debts to pay and he didn't want to start anything new with debts. But anyway, so I guess that's when I had met Jerry while Robert was paying off his debts. Anyway, so then this was during the time when the babysitting thing became a real problem. And Robert said, well, I'm off for 2 weeks during the summer. I can come over and watch the kids, and I'll bring my 4 over, and I'll take them up to the local swimming pool, and we'll have a good time. And he said, I can fix lunch for him and everything. Well, he did. He was a fantastic dad, and he knew how to do everything. He could do laundry, wash the dishes, cook, the whole thing. And you know, he just won me over, really. He won Mike and Melody over first, though. We were in the car. He always wanted to take the kids with us when we went on dates, which was totally opposite from any of the other men. They always just wanted me. No, Robert wanted the kids with us. And he had a glove compartment full of bubble gum. And they soon found that out, and so they wanted to go with him and get that bubble gum. And one time we were already dating quite a bit, but no one had said anything about marriage. And Melody pipes up in the back seat and says, "Mama, are you going to marry him and we can get a house and a dog?" And I thought, Mike probably put her up to that. And it was kind of embarrassing. And he said, "That's okay." He said, "Don't worry about it. I know how kids are." Well, that's exactly what we did. We got married. But we went down to San Benito, or to Harlingen. Mom and Dad had moved to Harlingen. And we got married in my mother's cousin's home, Elizabeth. Her maiden name was Elrod, and I don't remember what her married name was, but we got married in her home. And the preacher in Harlingen, I told him that I didn't want to say that I would obey Robert. I don't like that. Now, this was all during the women's movement period of time. This was 1971, I believe, maybe 72. And I said, I don't want that in the sermon. And he said, "That is the way I do weddings, and if you don't want it, then I won't do your wedding." He said, "Think it over." He was rather pompous, really. And so he went in another room, and Robert and I talked it over. And I said, "Robert, I don't want that." And he said, "Just say it. Just say it. Cross your fingers if you have to. Just say it. And so we can get married. You don't have to mean I'm not going to make you obey me." I said, "Okay, we'll go with that." So we went back in, called him back in and said, "Okay, it's all right." So he made me say it.